Welcome to In Your Defense, Galveston and Beyond.
Welcome to the In Your Defense with Mark Diaz, a passionate criminal defense attorney with over 25 years of experience defending the rights of Texans. I'm Lisa Mosbey, and today we're talking about how prior convictions affect a criminal case in Texas and why enhancements can change everything from the charge to the potential sentence. Welcome to the podcast, Mark.
Hi, Lisa. Thanks for having me.
Mark, to start, let's define that word enhancements. Could you explain what enhancements are in Texas criminal cases?
So the most common way that people think of an enhancement would be, for instance, a simple example is if you've already had a DWI and then you get another DWI, now you're charged with DWI second. So the punishment enhances. Get another one, now you're at felony level. Same thing with, for instance, like if you've been convicted of assault of a family member and then you get another charge in the future, it can be filed as a felony. Now, what people don't think as much about is there can be certain enhancements for instance, using a weapon or having over a certain amount of drugs is going to give you a minimum punishment level. Typically, when we think of enhancements, we're talking about prior criminal history, but there are other things that can be an enhancement.
And Mark, when a prosecutor is reviewing someone's record, what parts of that history tend to matter most?
Any crimes of violence. Prosecutors are going to treat those as more serious offenses, and then whatever the new case is, their offer is going to reflect what they think your history tells about you.
And I know Texas has specific rules for repeat offenders. How do prior convictions change the range of punishment for a new charge?
So the biggest is going to be your third felony. That's going to make your punishment range 25 to life. We call it the Habitual Offender Statute, and we deal with it all the time. People have 2 prior felony convictions, what we call 2 prior pen trips, and now they pick up a third, and so they're looking at 25 to life no matter what the charge is.
And some offenses trigger enhancements automatically. Is that correct? While others depend on how the case is filed. What are some examples of situations where an enhancement is almost guaranteed?
DWI, family violence, drugs, basically the most common things. But when you say automatically, don't forget an enhancement can also always be a negotiating tool.
Can you explain?
They may make an offer on a case and say, we'll offer to abandon the enhancement and give you less punishment to avoid going to trial.
Oh, interesting. Okay. And then a prior conviction doesn't always reflect the full story. When you're preparing a defense, what parts of someone's past do you examine to understand how the state might have used it?
So it's going to be different because time is going to matter, right? When were these prior convictions? What were they for? Were they crimes of violence? Was it 10 years ago? Was it last year? So we have to look and try and get a picture because it could be a situation where someone went through something at a period in their life, and that's how we can explain what happened during that brief period.
Enhancements can create pressure to accept a plea, maybe. I'm just assuming here. But when reviewing a case, what details help show whether the enhancement truly fits the facts or if it's being applied too broadly?
Okay, so to look at enhancements, first, it's kind of complicated. We have to go find the original judgment and make sure that the state can prove the enhancement, because it has happened, especially where cases were old or from other jurisdictions, that we know a person has this on their record, but the state can't prove it. So we have to look at each potential enhancement, right, to make sure the state can prove it before we begin negotiations. Because if I do that, I'm telling the state, hey, you can't prove this one, right? So that's going to change where we start at in negotiations.
And you did mention the age. You look back and discover when their last conviction was. Um, for people who have old convictions, how does the age of a prior conviction affect its impact today? And do older cases matter less, or can they still carry the same weight?
So legally speaking, an old conviction can carry the same weight. However, it is something we take into consideration in negotiations. In other words, if my client has a prior, but it was 20 years ago, that's much different than if it was from last year. And so legally, they can carry the same weight. Practically, that doesn't always happen.
Okay. So that's the nuances, right? I mean, we think of it as a conviction is a conviction, but there are nuances to it. And I think that's what I was trying to get at was with that information. Sometimes a prior conviction from another state may appear in a Texas case. How do prosecutors decide whether an out-of-state conviction qualifies as an enhancement here?
So the easiest way to explain that is the prosecutor will look at the elements of the case in the other state and see if it fits the elements of the enhancement that they're trying to use. And this doesn't come up a lot. I have seen it sometimes in sexual offenses because different states have different classifications of sexual offenses. But, a DWI in Louisiana is going to be the same as a DWI in Texas. Does that make sense? So it as long as the elements of the crime are the same as what they're trying to prove here, it'll fly.
I'm tracking with you. So, Mark, looking ahead, why is it so important for someone with a record to understand enhancements early in the process? And how does that knowledge shape the overall strategy of the defense?
It's an individual answer because, believe it or not, I have clients that go to prison, come out, return to a life of crime, and hire me again. And some people just decided that they don't care, right? On the other hand, if you're a first-time offender, you really need to put a lot of thought and go over all this with your attorney because it could have an impact on your future, right? And so if there might be a way to avoid a conviction up front so that you don't have to worry about an enhancement in the future, that's a conversation that you would have with me.
And Mark, you get to talk directly to your audience here through podcasting. What message do you want to leave with folks today about enhancements?
Your prior record may affect the direction of our case, but it's an individual conversation that we're going to have and see how it may or may not affect you.
Folks, thank you so much for joining us. That's it for today's episode of In Your Defense. To learn more or to get help with a criminal charge involving enhancements in Galveston, Chambers, or Harris County, visit texascriminaljustice.com. And don't forget to like, share the show, and leave a review so more Texans can get clear information, what they need when they need it most. Thank you.
Thanks again, Lisa.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.